Hey everyone, I'm John Lynn, the founder and chief editor at Healthcare IT Today, and we're excited to bring you another in our series of interviews with top leaders in health IT. And our guest today is Adrian Jennings, CPO of Cognosos. Welcome, Adrian.
Hey John, thanks. Thanks for having me on. Really looking forward to this.
Yeah, excited for our discussion. Before we dive into the topic, tell us a little bit about yourself and Cognosos.
Sure, yeah, a little bit about me. Not from round here, as you can hear.
I love
Originally
the
from the
accent.
UK. I describe myself as a recovering rocket scientist. I did nefarious things with rockets in the UK, and I ended up in beautiful Huntsville, Alabama, Rocket City, USA,
Wow.
to do some work with DoD, and from that point decided, you know what, kind of like America. I think we'll stay. And that was the point I got into this real-time location business. So that was gosh, almost 25 years ago now. So I've been finding things in hospitals and various other places for about 25 years now. And then Cognosos, I started at Cognosos about 2.5 years ago. I discovered Cognosos, or they discovered me. I think it was a little bit of both. And I was pretty intrigued with what Cognosos is doing. They'd really kind of reinvented RTLS in a new era, and really filled a hole in the market that had been frustrating me for, gosh, a decade and a half or more. So I got excited about the tech and jumped on board, and yeah, here we are. And yeah, happy to talk about it.
Awesome. Well, I can't pass this opportunity up to ask the question. Judy from Epic, Judy Faulkner, the founder of Epic, has a famous shirt that says "Health IT is harder than rocket science." So, is this true or is it not?
It's true. And you know what's funny about that is, Cognosis, we have two divisions. One is focused on healthcare, one is focused on logistics, outdoor logistics.
Okay.
And I was literally 2 weeks ago on a stage at a logistics conference saying logistics is a lot harder than rocket science. So,
Yeah,
all
it's
hard
funny. It's
believers.
a famous shirt that because you're like it's easier than
Well, the joke is people will say, "Wow, rocket science." I say, "Yeah, but when you take them apart, it's all kind of just like nuts and bolts and wires and stuff." there's some there's some parts that go bang, but aside from that, there's a lot more going on in a cell phone.
yeah, well, yeah, that's true. Mark Rober's opened our eyes to some of the rocket science, so that's good. Well, let's dive into the topic. Cognosis with RTLS and all that deals with tracking of equipment. So, talk to us. How big is the problem of stolen equipment in healthcare?
Yeah, it's big. It's stolen and or lost, and either in the facility or exiting somehow. So it's a very common problem. I mean, common enough that some of our customers, that's the primary purpose of installing an asset management system, is to combat theft. And of course, I guess it depends a little bit about where you are,
Sure.
but it's theft and loss, right? So theft, it can be individuals. It In a lot of cases it's organized,
Hmm,
and there's a lot of valuable equipment in hospitals,
for sure.
and it's not that difficult to take it out, in truth. But it's not just theft. Stuff goes out in the laundry.
Hmm,
You clean a room and
yeah, gets
wrap
lost.
everything up in the sheets and other small items. Yeah, I can go down the laundry chute. You can go out in the trash. I mean, there are lots of ways an item can exit a hospital and never come back. That's for sure. And there are lots of places an item could go in a hospital and disappear into a black hole too.
Yeah, it's not all nefarious. It's interesting you said that depending upon locale. It seems like that would be an interesting graph, but that you probably wouldn't want to share. But
Yeah.
that's interesting. What are some of the most frequently stolen equipment or even lost equipment in a medical facility?
It's really the smaller items. And
They're
just
not taking a CT scanner.
yeah, I mean that's hard, right? Stealing the MRI is pretty tricky. Obviously, it's mobile equipment,
Right.
uh, but it's things like, think about a telemetry unit. Those things are getting smaller and smaller.
It's
They
true.
put the sensors on, probably tuck them in your pocket there, and those are easy to smuggle out, and that's an expensive device, and there are a lot of them. So it's that kind of equipment that is easily easily liberated from the hospital, shall we say, by one means or another.
Is there a reason why the device makers aren't doing the tracking themselves? Like, like to your point, like, yes, well, maybe they want to keep making it smaller.
So I was about to say, shall I give you the cynical view?
I just think it's interesting, that, this is a potential problem. Although I guess maybe they make money if it's stolen too, but that's a really cynical view.
In reality, some of the management of mobile medical devices, that does oftentimes get outsourced, right? And a lot of stuff is rental. It's not necessarily owned.
Sure.
Rental. It could be a completely outsourced biomed where there's a third party who's providing and managing all of that. And those people absolutely have a vested interest in managing their assets better, because it's now their bottom line that gets affected. Why the device manufacturers themselves don't do that, we'll leave to for people's imagination.
Yeah. Well, and probably the other point is that if I'm a hospital and I have 15 device manufacturers, I don't want 15 platforms to track my equipment.
Yeah, like they always say about standards. The great thing about standards is there are so many to choose from. And,
yeah, that's for sure. So talk to us about some of the impacts of when equipment's stolen. What are some of the stories you've heard from customers that have had it stolen, and what's happened?
Yeah, well, so it's not as, it sounds terrible, right? Because it sounds like it's going to immediately affect quality of care. What if you don't have the equipment that you need? But the truth is the impact is hospitals buy more stuff. And actually, the purchase of mobile medical equipment is probably the last market in the world where the chief nursing officer says, damn it, we can never lay our hands on ... syringe pump when we need it. We need more. And the answer is absolutely how many do we need? Because what you don't want to do at all is compromise quality of care. So the net result is hospitals, first of all, obviously they have to replace stuff that goes missing.
Sure.
But hospitals hold a much higher inventory of stuff than they need because of this just problem of laying your hands right at the moment. And it doesn't have to leave the building, as I said, theft, absolutely, loss through various other means out of the hospital, but being in the wrong place and unfindable. What if somebody just shoves some equipment into the broom closet when they're dashing down the hallway because they want to get it out of the way? Well, that could be lost for a week.
Yeah, a code blue hits and they leave it, and then they forget where it is and don't bring it back. And
yeah, exactly. Get shoved into the stairwell. People develop a blind spot because they've walked past it 10 times already, and then we don't see things anymore after we've done that. So so what's the consequence? The consequence is a massive overspend on mobile medical equipment, because you have to keep spending on that to maintain the quality of care that you'll maintain. Now, on the flip side, though, we've all probably felt some of the consequences of equipment not being where it should be, either through loss or being misled. And I'll give you a really simple example on how this kind of backs up through the whole system. Imagine you've gone through some procedure, all ready to be checked out, and there you are sitting on your room, and someone will be with you in a minute. We're gonna bring a wheelchair. And you sit there and you start thinking, did somebody forget me? And it sounds kind of familiar, right? And an hour later, you're thinking, what the hell is going on? Well, what's happening is nobody can find a wheelchair. Did it get nicked? I mean, a wheelchair is a pretty easy thing to steal, by the way, because a wheelchair, you will someone out into the parking lot and then think, well, you know what? Let's just put that in the back of the car. I'm going to need that at home. So that, I think with wheels is kind of easy to wheel out. But so there you are, sat in that room waiting to get discharged. That's not good. But guess what? Somebody else is waiting to go into that room. They're sat in another room wondering why the heck they've been ignored and have they been forgotten. And back it goes to sitting a long time in the waiting room, getting seen in the first place. So these problems of not being able to lay your hands on just something as simple as a wheelchair can be really debilitating in terms of your efficiency, right? Just the speed at which you can see patients and get them out the door. And we all want that to be fast, patients and hospitals alike.
Yeah, not to mention the nurse that's burnt out searching for the wheelchair and wants the
No kidding.
patient
Yeah.
gone and is hearing from the patient, why am I not leaving? And they're like, I don't know. Like,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, you're pushing the button, calling the nurse, and they're rushing in, and yeah, it's not a fun environment for nurses, that's for sure.
Yeah, and in this world of big burnout, that becomes a major thing when you can't find the piece of equipment that you want. So that's
It does
interesting.
big burnout and just difficulty hiring. I mean, a
Sure.
lot of hospitals are understaffed in general. They can't hire the people. It's a high skill job. It takes a special human. You there's a precious resources, those people, and if you can't get enough of them and you're burning out the ones you've got, that is
Problems.
not good. Yeah.
So talk to us about how RTLS can help with this problem. For those that aren't familiar, with RTLS, I think
Yeah.
most of our audience has probably heard the term, but yeah,
Yeah,
how
I'll
can it
talk you
help?
through how it's traditionally been used to help and how it ought to be. And
Okay.
so RTLS, what does it mean? It means real time location system. It's GPS for your stuff, right? So
Yep.
pull out a device, pull out a phone. Where's the wheelchair? I need a wheelchair. Show me a wheelchair. There they are. Map of the hospital, dots all around. I can go lay my hands on one right away. And so that's kind of the basic premise of RTLS is do I know where all my stuff is? And that's pretty, any process where you've got moving parts, knowing where the parts are is pretty key. So back in the day, and when I'm saying back in the day, I'm talking 20 years ago was when I was first working in healthcare with RTLS.
Okay.
Um, the thought back then was our nurses can never find what they need. Therefore, we need a thing finding solution so that the nurses don't have to wander around the hospital finding it. They can pull out a phone and they can do a search and they can see it and they can go straight to it. Well, that's not fixing the problem. Here's my little analogy I always tell people is if you got yourself a puppy and if your puppy kept stealing your slippers, would you train the puppy not to steal the slippers, or would you hire someone to find them for you? And it's stupid, right? Because you train
Yeah.
the puppy. But what RTLS used to be was slipper finders. People actually bought solutions to find their lost slippers and their lost equipment. And so the question is shouldn't be, how do I quickly lay my hands on things that are lost? It should be, can we stop these things getting lost in the first place?
Hmm.
Why aren't wheelchairs staged exactly where you need them? The stairwells, the elevator shaft, the front door. Why aren't clean rooms efficiently and adequately stocked with everything that you might need? Why aren't soiled rooms quickly cleared so that there's not any backlog of stuff? It's not about, can you help nurses find lost things? It's about, can you guarantee that what they need will always be right where it should be so they can lay hands on it with no bother? And that's the new era of RTLS, is kind of
Interesting.
automated asset management rather than finding lost stuff, which is kind of stupid,
And
really.
in that approach, is it kind of like learning what their habits are that then allow you to stage it in the right place, or is there more to it than that?
Yeah, it's about really, it's about trust. So look, I'm a nurse. My job is the patient, right? And I will do what it takes to make sure I can find the stuff that I need, even if I have to hide it. And that happens for
Yep.
the best reasons, and it's good for quality of care. But of course, it's not good for usage of that equipment. Traditionally, hospitals, the usage rate of their equipment is less than 50%, like about 40%.
Yep.
Just about every hospital is double the amount of equipment that you need for these reasons, right? So how do you stop that? Well, if you could create enough trust in the nurses that, look, we've got this system whereby we can do all this replenishment of clean rooms, for example. Anything you need, you just go to the clean room and it will be there for you. And if you can do that, great. That is fine. And so how do you build that level of trust? Well, it better be there. It has to be there. You have to know when you're getting low. You have to know, you have to task people to go replenish. And a lot of hospitals have kind of tried that clean room model,
Mm-hmm.
and and failed at it actually because they didn't have the visibility to keep them replenished. And the first time you go to the clean room where management is telling
Yep.
you it's going to be there and it's not there, screw that.
Trust is done.
Trust is done. So it's about trust. And how do you create trust? By doing the job well, and you do the job well by having the visibility that lets you get proactive warnings about when things need restaging. That's what
Interesting. So, you know, there's a lot of RTLS solutions out there. These are quite a few. Talk to us about how Cognosos RTLS works. You know, what's the process? You know, what makes it unique?
Yeah, this is kind of what got me excited. I was, as I said, 25 years doing this, a couple of years at Cognosos. So I was a 20+ year, pretty jaded veteran of RTLS who was getting a little bit cynical. And what was making me cynical was this. Like, there were really, the legacy solutions split into a couple of camps. One is really high performing solutions. I mean, tell you exactly which room something is in. No searching, it's in there, open the door, there it is. But those are very costly. They require lots of installed infrastructure. They're very finicky to set up. You know, they turn into these giant construction and IT projects, and they're very vulnerable to changes as well. And here's the funny thing that happens. This is Adrian's paradox of RTLS in hospitals. Wow, this is great. We lose our equipment. This will help us find it right away. How much? Wow, that's expensive. We can't afford to do that in the whole hospital. Let's just do it in places we know the equipment goes. Well, that doesn't make any sense. If the equipment's where it's supposed to go, it isn't lost. You should invert that and put the RTLS everywhere else, right? But of course that never happens. So what you end up is partial coverage with very expensive solutions, and there's no return on investment. First of all, they're too expensive. Secondly, they don't solve the problem because they don't cover everything.
Right.
So then the other half is, let's just do it cheap. What about using Wi-Fi? What about using Bluetooth? Cool. And there are some super low-cost options out there. Very easy, quick to deploy. But they don't work very well. The accuracy is not there. Maybe the accuracy is 20, 30 feet. Well, that's a lot. And 20, 30 feet goes up as well as left and right.
Could be the next floor up. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you've got this, it really works, but it's so damned expensive it doesn't really return an ROI, or it's cheap, but it's so damn useless it doesn't return an ROI. And there's nothing ever been in the middle, which is, look, it doesn't cost very much, but it has the performance. And that's where Cognosos was innovating when I joined them, in a whole new way of doing things using machine learning and applying AI to the sensors itself. We use Bluetooth, which is the low-cost way of doing things, and we train an AI to recognize one room from another. And AIs are really good at that. Thankfully, other people spent trillions of dollars developing algorithms that we can leverage in hospitals to make the low-cost Bluetooth technology work as well as this legacy stuff that's just kind of too expensive to deploy. And that means if it's low cost enough, you can do it everywhere. Every stairwell, every broom closet, every loading dock, every patient in the room, everywhere. Parking lot, you know, wherever. And you apply the AI and you get the fantastic performance that gives you the possibility. And here's where the crux is. If I'm going to manage a clean room, I'd better know it's in that room. If I've got zero syringe pumps in the room, and there's 3 that somebody's left in the hallway because the soiled room's full and they couldn't put them in there, so they're left in the hallway, and I think they're accidentally in the clean room because they've got location errors, nobody's going to go replenish that. There's 3 in there, we're good. Well, truly it's empty. So you need that level of performance to do that automation. So Cognosos has made this magical leap using AI of low-cost infrastructure, easy to deploy, with all the performance of the super expensive stuff that never really caught on. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well, and to your point, like, you know, you need a full coverage, right, to solve the problem.
Yeah.
How do you see people approaching like tracking each piece of equipment? Is there like a certain bar if it's worth this, or or how do you see them doing that? You know, when it comes to should they be tracking everyone, and how do you evaluate which ones should be tracked and which ones are like, no, we can just replace those?
Yeah, usually it's certainly, well, let's say it's value based, but it's
Hmm.
also kind of consequence based a little bit. What's the cost of not being able
Okay.
to find it? Now,
Yeah.
okay, so maybe you've got something that's super low cost and you can afford to have twice as many as you need, and that's fine. But usually hospitals have a roadmap. They'll have a certain classes of equipment that they know are critical, that they always have a problem with, and they'll start there. And then we go in, we get it done, we get all that working, and then you have basically a program of bringing in, and it kind of goes by value, really, and size often. Like,
Sure.
there's a very long tail of small stuff that you'll get to, but let's get the critical stuff first. So yeah, it's usually an evolving thing with hospitals.
Yeah. Well, they start with some and then they start tagging everything. Is that?
Well, so two things happen, right? Either they say, yeah, we're going to do everything, but let's walk before we run. Let's do this in phases. Or they say, yeah, we don't really need to track everything. We're just going to track these critical stuff. And pretty quickly, the answer that comes back saying, well, we
There's
think we
some
want to do
more.
everything. We kind of like this. Turns out to be really helpful. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, so it always ends up with everything.
And how do you address the volume of RTLS data that's coming? You know, I mean, it's interesting to use the clean room example, right?
Mhm.
I don't know if this is this feels like a problem for AI, but like, there's so much data that's happening. And obviously, if I'm a nurse and just need to find it, that's
Yeah.
one scenario. But I assume you take all that data and put it in something that you can see usage and all those other things. So how do you address
Yeah.
kind of that volume of data since data is gold now in healthcare? That's I think the official ruling.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot. So just one thing on that, the nurses should never know that this even exists.
Hmm,
Like, we always say that we have done our job. If you forgot, you bought it from us, because
interesting.
the goal is to kind of blend into the background, right? The goal is to support such an efficient process that everything just works. So
Yeah,
um yeah,
goes to your new age of RTLS that you're talking about. Just having it there so that you don't have to search for it.
we're not forcing you to pull a phone out and do searches and stuff. No nurse wants to do that,
Yeah,
let alone go finding it. But yeah, so a good RTLS you don't even know you've got. And the reason is the volume, the data gets turned into something useful and actionable, right? So how do we cope with the volume? We're cloud based. Um, that's helpful in a couple of ways. So it's a SaaS model. So it's basically you pay a little bit per month depending on how much you're tracking, and that's very helpful for people to adopt it. These old legacy solutions used to be, you'd get quotes of $1 million+, and it was going to be a 6 months installation, and yeah, it's not like that anymore. We get it
yeah. And
installed
then you have to
fast.
get space in the data center, and then the security guy has to allow you in the data center to allow.
Giant
And
IT
now they don't
project.
even have data centers. So, well,
Exactly right. So part of how you cope with a lot of data, we've got all the brain power and storage we need in the cloud. And the brain power is the key, right? Because the brain power on the sensor side is this AI that does the location. We don't do any of that on premise. Raw data straight to cloud. We can throw a giant set cloud-sized brain at every tag on every device, which is what's really cool. And then the other thing is you can throw a giant cloud-sized brain at analyzing the data as well. So people want to know about utilization. We need to track that. We need to track things like, do you have a certain class of equipment that you've got a giant rental bill, but you're only using half of the ones you bought? That's not uncommon. And then the other aspect of data processing in the cloud is the ability to understand exactly what it means to run an efficient operation. So I'll give you an example. When we go into a hospital, and we're going to set up clean rooms, say, and soiled rooms, right? Set up a clean room. So what you're going to do is set thresholds for what is the maximum and minimum number of each class of equipment that should be in here? What are our warning levels? What are you've got to get there now to replenish the room levels? And you ask the question, and they've got numbers, and you ask about the source of the numbers, and the answer is, well, it's usually pretty anecdotal. That's
Experience.
yeah, it's always kind of worked, right? So yeah, we like to have 10 of X in that room, and we don't like it to go below, 3 or 4. When we get to there, we want to be replenishing. Okay, but we'll monitor that, right? We've got all this data streaming in, and we'll review it, and we'll say, look, you never got below 8. You're just storing equipment that you never use in the clean room. You can bring that holding right down again. So part of it is managing the process, but part of it is that data analytics that says, okay, here's the optimal process you should be operating. So yeah, that's the other part of that data management, and creating the situation where I've always said, people always start this way. Where's my stuff? Look at a map. But really, ultimately, if it's up and running, if it's done this thing that I said and it's disappeared in the background, it's not about dots and stuff. It's about a quarterly review where we say, your optimum PAR level of this device in this room is 6. Your optimum warning level is 3. Let's do that. That's going to reduce your equipment holdings by X and improve your utilization by Y. And that's what it's about. It's about that level of data.
Interesting. Are there times where, like the usage increases, and so you can actually warn them like, hey, this is increasing, and then they could look at it and say, why is this increasing? Is this a good increase? Is this a bad increase?
Yeah.
Are we wasting, or is there a new safety issue that's why it's increasing? Do you ever see
Yeah.
that situation?
Right. And beyond that, even what's interesting is gosh, is the right equipment is the equipment balance that you need deployed ready for use the same on Tuesday morning as it is on Saturday night? What about the holidays versus the middle of summer? So over time you get this really interesting trend information, and you end up with, well, you can almost call it like a self-configuring hospital, right?
Wow, that's interesting.
And so the future of this is definitely, we talk about AI, and when people think AI, they tend to think big data AI, all this data. So we're applying it down at the core sensor level to make high quality sensors from low cost devices. Okay, but there's a lot still to do at the big data level, and we're working with partners on this as well. What if you need a different mix of equipment if it starts to rain? What is mass casualty mode?
Right.
There's a lot of scope here as we go forward with all this data to do some really clever things with making sure that not only is the right equipment in the right place at the right time, but that mix is optimized for what's happening right now, which is kind of the holy grail.
Sure. Well, I just can imagine weekends and all the extra people that are out partying and having incidences that,
Right.
end up in the hospital, or in
Yeah.
Vegas, like I'm at, that it's just every day. But
There you go. Every day, every morning. Yeah.
but
That's
RTLS could figure that out.
yeah. Now we don't, and I'm not going to say that's there right now, right? But that's the promise of this. As we build these giant, totally anonymized, right? But these giant
Sure.
banks of data about usage, and you can start to correlate that with other things going on. That's what machine learning has become very, very good at.
Yeah.
So we're excited about that.
Very cool. Adrian, I appreciate you taking time to educate us on the RTLS space. I think, it sounds like it's come through a big evolution, and it probably is now battling some of the past stigmas of to what you said, the large implementation projects, and you've come a long way.
Yeah, you're right. It is. There's definitely a feeling of RTLS.
Yeah, that's only for the rich, right?
Yeah, or we tried that and it didn't work. Or yeah, we heard about that. But that's the parting thought I think I would leave with people is, no, it ain't your father's RTLS anymore. Lots happened in the last 20 years, and two big things that happened: it's cloud and AI, and those are making a giant difference to the utility of these things and reducing the cost.
Nice. AI everything. That's where we're at today.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking time to talk with us, and thanks everyone for watching and listening. If you want to find more great healthcare IT content like this, be sure to check it out at healthcareittoday.com or search for Healthcare IT Today on your favorite podcasting applications. Thanks, Adrian.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.